An earthquake this morning strikes in nearly the same spot as one yesterday. KPIX5's Emily Turner tells us the twin quakes happened during a week.
It is happening again. For the second time in 72 hours, the ground beneath San Francisco shook citizens awake, this time with significantly greater force. A magnitude 6.0 earthquake occurred shortly after morning, rocking buildings, upsetting nerves, and causing a wave of uncertainty throughout the Bay Area. Emergency sirens rang throughout the city as citizens rushed to check on loved ones, while experts struggled to make sense of the latest shock in a slew of seismic activity. This isn't simply a random earthquake. From Broadmoor to Berkeley, from microshocks to abrupt jolts big enough to knock books off shelves, something deeper is going on, and geologists, engineers, and city authorities are all asking the same urgent question. Are these tremors a sign of something bigger to come? Stay with us, because in this video, we'll explain what's really going on beneath California's crust, and why the next 30 days could be the most important for the Bay Area in over a decade. Hit the like button, subscribe for real-time updates, and let's get started. The timeline of tremors is like a ticking clock. It began slowly, with a series of minor shakes, most of which could not be felt. Then came the first jolt. On July 8th, there was a 3.0 magnitude earthquake near Loyola. Not huge, but noticeable. Enough to make folks nervous and start a conversation. Only 40 minutes later, it happened again. Another tremor. Slightly weaker, but strikingly similar. Same area, depth, and fault segment. Locals dismissed it as a fluke. Simply California being California. But that was only the beginning. On July 27th, the Earth hit back. A 2.4 magnitude earthquake struck Berkeley in the dead of night. Shallow, near to the city center, and sharp enough to send citizens scrambling for cover. Within hours, sensors detected two minor quakes near Broadmoor, each measuring 1.6 magnitude and following the same pattern. Clustered, sudden, localized. In just 7 days, the region experienced 8 earthquakes larger than 1.5 magnitude. How about in a month? 34. The numbers are not just high, but also unusual. And it's not just about frequency, it is the distribution. Tremors are appearing in areas that had been quiet for years, from the East Bay Hills to Pacifica's coastal margins. What is the scariest part? Some of these quakes are occurring 7 kilometers beneath the surface, where tectonic stress gradually builds until it has no choice but to release. Scientists are now paying close attention because of patterns like these. They can indicate a stress reset or a countdown. Nobody wants to figure out which one it is the hard way. This isn't a random shake. What we're seeing currently resembles a seismic swarm, a grouping of earthquakes that occur close together in both time and location. Unlike the conventional big quake followed by aftershocks pattern, swarms are caused by several similar-sized tremors that trigger one another, like falling dominoes. Scientists at UC Berkeley believe the recent action near Loyola and Berkeley may be exactly that, and when these swarms occur, it indicates that the fault is responding to shifting stress levels deep underground, a shift that might occasionally presage a larger rupture. It's not a guarantee, but it's troubling. Even little earthquakes matter because they serve as pressure gauges for the Earth. Currently, the gauges are jumping. Swarms may dissipate or indicate a larger issue emerging. To understand why these tremors matter, you must first understand where they occur. San Francisco is surrounded by a complex web of faults, not just one. The largest, the San Andreas Fault. It stretches nearly the full length of California, passing directly by the Bay Area. It is a strike-slip fault, which means that the plates slide past each other horizontally. It sounds easy, yet it creates tension, like a rubber band, until it snaps. The Hayward Fault, which runs directly through the East Bay, comes next. It has not had a large earthquake since 1868, and geologists describe it as a ticking time bomb, since it is overdue for one. On top of that is the Calaveras Fault, which moves silently through the South Bay. It gets less attention, yet it is equally deadly. These 3 flaws do not work in isolation. They influence one another, and when one changes, it can send shockwaves, literally, through the others. The Hayward Fault is one of the most perplexing faults for scientists. Why? Because it runs immediately beneath some of the Bay Area's most heavily populated cities, Oakland, Berkeley, and Fremont, yet hasn't seen a major rupture in over 150 years. Experts believe it's locked and loaded, just waiting for the appropriate trigger. Worse, it is located beneath soft, water-saturated soil, providing ideal circumstances for shaking to magnify rather than absorb. The Calaveras Fault runs across the slopes of Silicon Valley. It is quieter, but not safe. In fact, clusters of minor quakes were observed there this summer, indicating that tension is rising along its length. New research also suggests that these two faults may be linked at depth, which means that a rupture on one may potentially cascade into the other, transforming a poor earthquake into a disastrous one. The true danger is not just one flaw breaking, but two. When every second counts, technology can make the difference between chaos and order. Enter Shake Alert, California's early warning system. It detects the initial, faster P waves of a quake before the slower, more devastating S waves arrive. That small window, sometimes only 5 to 15 seconds, is enough to halt trains, interrupt procedures, or advise schoolchildren to take cover. Then there's MyShake, a free app developed by UC Berkeley that sends notifications directly to your phone. It detects shaking in real time using seismic sensors as well as crowdsourced smartphone data. More than 4 million Californians have downloaded it. Is this perfect? No, but it's preferable to being caught off guard. In a location where earthquakes strike without warning, these technologies provide people with a head start, which could save lives in the event of a catastrophic quake. So if you live in the Bay Area and haven't got it yet, what are you waiting for? You cannot stop an earthquake, but you may limit the amount of damage it does. Following calamities such as the Loma Prieta earthquake in 1989, California revised its building rules. New high-rises are being built on foundation isolators, bridges have sheer walls, and water systems have been reinforced. But here's the issue. Not every building is new. Thousands of homes and businesses in San Francisco were built before contemporary seismic rules, and many are still unreinforced masonry, which crumbles in a major earthquake. Then there's the quiet killer, liquefaction. Soft water-soaked soil in places like the Marina District in Mission Bay can turn into quicksand when shaken. Buildings tilt, roads buckle, entire blocks sank. It occurred in 1906, and it can happen again. That is why retrofitting is not optional. It is required. San Francisco has already ordered retrofits for older structures, but progress has been slow, particularly in low-income communities. Geological surveys have identified high-risk liquefaction zones, and the city is advising people to secure water heaters, brace foundations, and prepare emergency kits. Because when the ground turns to jelly, what you've done ahead of time is all that stands between you and calamity. For many in the Bay Area, earthquakes are more than just shaking buildings. They are also disturbing nerves. Even mild earthquakes feel major when they strike at 2 a.m. A sudden jolt, the walls creaked, the rush to check phones, pets, and family members. People freeze. Some people are panicking. Others get flashbacks to Loma Prieta, Northridge, collapsing roads, and marina fires. Experts now refer to this mental weight as seismic anxiety, and it is spreading. Each tremor causes a surge in social media activity. Neighborhood apps are overflowing with posts like, "Did anyone else feel that? Was that an earthquake? Should we be worried?" The truth is that even scientists can't always respond quickly enough. That ambiguity produces a sense of calm dread. But here's some good news. Awareness is leading into action. Across the Bay, people are signing up for programs like the Great California Shakeout, where over 1 million Californians practice drop cover hold drills each year. Cities such as San Francisco and Oakland are promoting community preparedness initiatives. Fire stations and schools are providing emergency response training to volunteers. And it's no longer just the large agencies. Neighbors are also organizing. They are establishing block-by-block support networks, sharing supplies, and ensuring that elders, children, and individuals with disabilities have backup plans. Because when the shaking begins, first responders cannot be everywhere. In those initial hectic minutes, the person who assists you may not be a firefighter. It may be your next-door neighbor, and thanks to emerging community movements, that neighbor may just be taught. In a city based on fault lines, being prepared is essential for survival. Scientists are keeping a careful eye on the ground underneath us as it fluctuates. Researchers now have equipment capable of detecting millimeter-sized motions on Earth's surface. No exaggeration. Satellites orbiting hundreds of miles above us use a technology known as INSAR, interferometric synthetic aperture radar, to beam down radar waves and monitor subtle variations in the landscape over time. Using GNSS, the same satellite system that controls your GPS, researchers can now track how stress accumulates and slips across fault lines before it causes a quake. A recent study discovered unique seasonal stress patterns produced by a variety of factors, including excessive rainfall and groundwater pumping. These minor variations may appear to be noise, but when evaluated over time, they can help anticipate which fault zones are quietly creeping and which are locked, silently accumulating energy. Then there's the discovery that astounded the scientific community: a newly mapped creeping portion of the Concord Fault that extends 7 kilometers further south than previously imagined. Scientists proved it's moving slowly, but not enough to relieve pressure completely, using a combination of field trenching, INSAR, and surface scans. That is the danger. Creeping faults can actually transfer stress to locked parts adjacent, effectively loading a spring that could snap unexpectedly. To keep up with this ever-changing hazard, the Shake Alert system just received a big upgrade. Version 3 now combines real-time GNSS data with classic seismic sensors, allowing it to detect earthquake size and speed more precisely. It even has a unique alert pause feature that reduces false alarms in busy metropolitan areas without delaying vital alerts. Bottom line, science isn't only evolving, it's advancing rapidly. With each tremor and every inch of ground that moves, researchers contribute to a huge database that is molding the future of earthquake prediction. And that knowledge brings something unique in earthquake country: a fighting chance. If an earthquake occurs, the Bay Area cannot afford to freeze. Roads, rails, and airports must withstand the shaking, which is why seismic enhancements to transportation infrastructure have become a high priority. Let me start with the Golden Gate Bridge. It spans just 6 miles from the San Andreas Fault and will undergo the last phase of reinforcing in January 2026. Crews will build 40-foot steel plates, shock absorbers, and a lattice framework to absorb seismic energy. What's the goal? Ensure that emergency vehicles can pass within 24 hours after a significant earthquake. Then there's the Transbay Tube, BART's underwater connection between San Francisco and Oakland. That refit is already completed. Engineers inserted a steel liner, fortified the surrounding soil to prevent liquefaction, and installed automatic pumping systems to control flooding. It is currently designed to withstand a significantly bigger earthquake without disrupting the bay's key transportation infrastructure. Flexible fuel pipes and updated emergency power systems have been installed at San Francisco International Airport. The air train tunnels were sealed against shifting soil, and the airport's operations center now has complete redundancy in the event of a system-wide failure. These are not simply repairs, they are lifelines. After a quake, it's more than just survival. It's about keeping people moving, bringing supplies in, and assisting rescue crews in reaching those in need. The Bay Area's strategy is clear: protect the region's arteries before a crisis strikes. Because when the shaking stops, the capacity to respond fast is what keeps a crisis from becoming a disaster. So what's actually going on beneath San Francisco? The answer is complex, but one thing is certain: the Earth is not quieting down. Every quake in California, from deep fault changes to surface-level swarms, demonstrates that the state is constantly in motion. And while we cannot prevent the next major earthquake, we can prepare for it. That requires modifying our dwellings, downloading early warning applications, checking in on the neighbors, and recognizing that resilience is developed before the shaking begins. The Bay Area is not only sitting on fault lines, but also on a ticking clock. However, with science, technology, and community, we can beat the countdown. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and enable notifications for real-time updates. Also, leave a comment below. Did you experience the new earthquake? Are you ready for the next one? We want to hear your tale. Thank you for watching, and be safe wherever you are.